A teacher had 7 senior boys who'd spent 4 years gaming the system, cheating off group mates, getting their parents to bully every teacher into submission. Nobody could touch them. So this teacher didn't try to touch them. He just moved one assignment to the exact day he knew all 7 would skip school. And then he watched gravity do the rest. One kid lost his scholarship, one didn't graduate, one got kicked out of college before he even started, and the parents who'd spent years name-dropping lawyers, they couldn't do a thing because this teacher had receipts for everything. And I mean everything. This is a one-story video from the subreddit Pro Revenge with 2 updates, full story start to finish, timestamps below. This post is by a user we'll call Mr. Aldrin. Posted to r/pro revenge. I'm a high school teacher who spent an entire year documenting 7 senior boys who gamed every group project. Then I moved the final project to senior skip day. They all got stuck working together. The fallout was beautiful. I teach a high school elective, grades 9 through 12, so that's 14 to 18-year-olds for the international crowd. My class isn't required to graduate, but it counts toward a core requirement, which means kids sign up voluntarily. That's important. I never want to hear, when are we going to use this? Because nobody made you take this class. You picked it. Own it. I structured my class around one idea. You're responsible for your own outcome. If you tried your best, you were guaranteed at least a C. Worked hard, you could push that to a B or an A. I busted my back to help any student who put in honest effort. Kid working hard on something and couldn't finish on time? Turn it in tomorrow. Full credit. That's how effort gets rewarded in my room. But mess around? Different story. I'd warn you a couple times. Email your parents, see if they cared. If they didn't, I'd let you keep digging that hole until you were waist deep in it and suddenly needed help. Then I'd toss you a rope instead of a ladder. You could still climb out, but you were going to work for it. The other thing I did, and this is the piece that made everything possible, is I ran my entire class through the school's online assignment system. Every assignment, every quiz, every project file, which meant I could see exactly when a student opened something, how long they spent on it, whether they even looked at the rubric. All time-stamped, all documented, all admissible in any parent conference. You have no idea how powerful it is to sit across from an angry parent and say, of course the test was hard. Your child didn't attempt any of the 9 homework assignments until 11 p.m. the night before. When you can prove a kid isn't trying, nobody can put it on you. It also meant the laziest kids avoided my class. Usually. The wave. Every other year, I'd get a batch of kids who just wanted to coast and blame everyone else when they crashed. They'd trash talk me. My class would shrink. Then, the next year, those same kids would tell everyone I was great, signups would spike, and the cycle repeated. It's predictable. I'm used to it. But this year, something special happened. I didn't just get the usual wave of slackers. I got 7 of them, all seniors, all boys, all friends, who shifted their schedules to land in the same period. And they came with parents who loved making trouble. These were the parents other teachers warned you about in the staff lounge, the ones who name-dropped lawyers when they didn't get their way, who accused teachers of making classes too hard when their kid got caught cheating, who treated every parent-teacher conference like a legal deposition. The other teachers couldn't believe I had all 7 at once. I just shrugged. Whatever, I've dealt with worse. I think. I'll name the 3 worst ones. Grant, Victor, and Dean. The other 4 were bad, but these 3 had parents who treated bullying teachers into compliance like a competitive sport. The group project problem. From day 1, these 7 were a unit. They'd mastered the art of looking busy while doing nothing. Didn't distract the other kids much, I'll give them that. But when the first group project hit, everything fell apart. My class was the right size for 7 groups of 4. The senior crew split into 2 groups, pulled in a kid who'd been absent on project day, and immediately tanked the assignment. They screwed around during class time, ignored a 2-week deadline until the weekend before, then dumped everything on one group member who did the bare minimum. Both groups turned in garbage. I handed out the grades. Within 24 hours, I was sitting in parent conferences, one at a time. Every meeting was the same script. "My kid did all the work. He doesn't deserve this grade." So I'd hand over the work their kid submitted. Then the rubric, the hyper-specific checklist I printed and emailed to every student the day the project started. Item by item, here's what was missing. Here's what was incomplete. Here's where the grade came from. And when they'd say, "Well, my kid's part was fine. It was the group's fault," I'd point to the missing sections and ask which part their kid did. The kid would go pale and say, my group members were responsible for those. Can't grade what I never received. Sorry." Now here's the thing. I designed my class so assignments are worth more as the semester goes on. The idea is that kids who screw up early can recover by actually trying later. I also scattered extra credit throughout the semester, so every parent left these meetings unhappy but reassured that their perfect child could still pull an A. And here's what happened next. Every set of parents decided their perfect angel was no longer allowed to work with the other seniors. Makes sense, right? Except now I've got 7 individual problems distributing themselves across every other group in my class like a virus. I required students to write group contracts for every project. Who does what, when it's due, signatures from everyone. If someone didn't hold up their end, the contract gave me documentation to remove them from the group and assign a 0 without their parents destroying my afternoon. Smart system, right? Except the other students were too scared to invoke the contract because they feared payback from the seniors. These were big kids, popular kids, the kind you could make your social life miserable if you crossed them. So these 7 just rotated, group to group to group. Every single project, some honest kid ended up carrying dead weight while a senior coasted on their effort. The parents of the good kids complained to me constantly, and I get it. Their kid did double the work and got the same grade as a guy who contributed nothing. I'd tell them the same thing every time. I need the contract to act. Your kid has to actually use the system I built. But nobody would pull the trigger because nobody wanted to be the senior who snitched on the popular group. Meanwhile, the seniors had turned the pre-project period into a whole operation. The day before I'd announce a new project, they'd split up and sit at separate tables, buying kids lunch, bringing them snacks, sucking up so hard it was almost impressive. Then when groups formed, they'd play the "I'm already sitting here, let's just be a group" card. Worked most of the time. I also made all group work happen in Google Docs, time-stamped edits, every change tracked to a specific user at a specific time. You wouldn't believe how many times a kid produced all the work the morning of a parent meeting trying to make me look incompetent. But the timestamps don't lie. I'd pull up the edit history and show that 47 edits happened at 6 a.m. the day of the conference. That tool saved me at least 10 times that year. The strain on class morale was real, but I was biding my time. The other students were grabbing extra credit constantly to absorb the blow. Parents complained, but I could always point to the opportunities I'd offered. My principal had a copy of my syllabus with every policy the parents had signed off on. When a parent said, "I didn't read that," he'd point to the clause above the signature. My signature denotes that I have read this document in its entirety and agreed to abide by all stated rules. He'd tell them this should be a lesson that when you sign something, you should read it first. How they gamed everyone else. I monitored these kids' grades in other classes too. I know that sounds aggressive, but I routinely do this for any student who's struggling. It helps me figure out if the problem is my class specifically or if they're tanking across the board. Tells you a lot about whether the issue is the material or the student. What I found was ugly, way worse than I expected. Grant had built an entire operation. He was getting other kids, not just his 7 friends, random underclassmen who owed him favors or were scared of him, to complete assignments. Then he'd distribute those answers to his crew through disappearing messages. Other teachers had been pressured by parents into lowering the weight of tests in their grading structure. So these seniors would bomb every exam but the homework and project grades, all inflated through leeching and answer sharing, gave them a comfortable cushion. Most were floating at low Bs in classes where they genuinely couldn't pass a test to save their life. I couldn't prove the cheating network directly. They were smart enough to use apps where messages disappeared after viewing, but when I brought it up with their other teachers, the response was always the same tired shrug. I know, but I don't feel like proving it and then spending 4 hours getting screamed at by their parents. These kids had spent 4 years training every adult around them to just give up and look the other way. My class was the one place that strategy wasn't working, which is probably why they hated it. The setup. Here's where I made my move. On a random day in class, I said something casual. Hey everybody, I was looking at the schedule and realized the last project before finals might stress you guys out. Would anyone mind if I dropped it? Class went nuts. Best teacher ever. Love you, Mr. Aldrin. Whatever. Cool. Well, since I'm dropping the last project, I'm going to move the next one back a couple weeks and extend the deadline by a week. Also, since this is now the final project, it's going to be worth about 20% of your grade, so do your best. Nobody flinched. I emailed every parent and student about the schedule change. Got nothing but positive responses. Less stress before finals. Great news. Thank you. What nobody asked was why I moved it to that specific week. The Friday before the project launched, I announced that groups would form today so we could start first thing Monday. I watched 7 faces go white because Friday was senior skip day. Our school didn't officially recognize it. The seniors tried to keep it secret, but I'd known about it for a month. All 7 were absent, which meant the entire rest of the class formed groups without them. And because 2 kids had transferred out at semester, the math worked out perfectly. These 7 would have to work together in 2 groups on a project worth 20% of their grade. I emphasized to everyone present that they needed to start Monday morning immediately after attendance. Then I sent an email to every parent and student, including the absent seniors, letting them know the project had started and that anyone absent needed to arrange groups before Monday. I think you can guess what happened next. Edit. People asking if I planned the skip day thing from the start. I moved the project primarily because another teacher dropped a monster assignment the same week. The skip day was a bonus, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't smiling when I checked attendance that Friday. Edit 2. Yes, I use Google Docs timestamps in parent meetings. It's my favorite tool. Second favorite is the email read receipt that proves they opened the rubric and still didn't follow it. He moved a project worth 20% of their grade to the exact Monday after senior skip day. Every one of these kids was absent. Every one. And then the email goes out. Please arrange your groups before Monday to a bunch of seniors who are currently at somebody's house pretending the principal gave them the day off. They didn't read it. Of course they didn't read it. They haven't read anything all year. That's the whole point. Let's see Monday morning. Update 1. Posted 2 weeks later. Update. The 7 seniors came back Monday to discover they were stuck with each other. The parent meetings were incredible. Quick recap. 7 senior boys who'd been leeching off group projects all year were all absent on senior skip day when I launched the final project worth 20% of their grade. The rest of the class formed groups without them. Here's Monday. Monday morning. The seniors came strolling in seconds before the bell like they always did, backpacks half unzipped, coffee in hand, weekend tans. They looked relaxed. That lasted about 4 seconds. Every table in the room had a full group already working, materials out, rubrics highlighted. Some groups had already divided roles and were deep into planning. The room was humming with productivity. And in the back, 2 empty tables, chairs pushed in, nothing on them, 7 faces, 7 slow realizations. They looked at each other, looked at me, looked at the empty tables, sat down. Okay, everybody, you've got the rubric. Go ahead and get started. The rest of the class pulled out materials instantly. Some of them were fighting back grins. They knew what was happening. They'd been carrying these guys all year, and now, for the first time, they were free. Then the arguing started. Grant, who genuinely believes he's the most charming person alive, tried to slide his chair over to another table. I caught it immediately. Groups are maxed at 4. He tried to negotiate a group of 5. I said, sure, but since the project's designed for 4, a group of 5 has to do double the work. Literally twice the project. He tried to argue. I pointed out the roles in the rubric and said 4 people doing it once is the same workload as 5 people doing it twice. Should be easy, right? The other kids at that table physically shooed him away. Word spread fast. Every senior who tried to attach themselves to an existing group got the same offer. Nobody took it. They ended up forming two groups among themselves. One group of 4 with Dean and Victor, one group of 3 with Grant. I nodded, made sure they had rubrics, and wished them luck. Then I emailed the parents, specifically Dean's parents and Victor's mom. Let them know their sons had, quote, chosen to work together on this final project. Victor's mom requested a meeting immediately. Per school policy, I had 48 hours to respond to a parent email. I waited until hour 47. Sent a non-committal, I'd love to meet, when works for you. Waited another 48 hours to suggest a time the following week. Why? Because the project was burning daylight, and every hour of delay was another hour these kids weren't working. Victor's mom. She showed up ready for war. First thing out of her mouth was a demand that I put Victor in a different group. I declined. Project had been going a week. Wouldn't be fair to the other students who'd already done the work. She demanded I let him join an existing group. They're all full. She demanded I let him work alone with an extension. Now here's the thing. I happily offered him the extension and slid a fresh copy of the rubric across the table. Victor went white, like all the color just drained out of his face, because he knew. He knew he was never planning to do any actual work on this project. In fact, I knew his group hadn't even started. Their contract was scribbled in pencil with no due dates, no role assignments, nothing. Just 3 names on a page. Victor started arguing with his mom right there in the meeting. Said he'd rather work with his friends. Said this wasn't his fault. Said I set them up on purpose. His mom, and I watched this switch happen in real time, pivoted from attacking me to considering his argument. Then she accused me of deliberately waiting until skip day to screw the seniors, called it a school tradition, said I was being petty and she'd take it to the school board. Here's where my prep work paid off. I had documentation, attendance records, call logs from the front office, showing that all 7 seniors spent skip day at her house. They'd told her the principal gave them the day off, an official day off, from the principal, which was obviously a lie. And, this is the best part, they'd each called the attendance office pretending to be their own parent to get the absence excused. Victor's mom flipped on him so fast, I almost got whiplash. Because she could keep pressing me on the project, but now I had evidence her son committed a suspendable offense by impersonating his father on an official call. I bought myself breathing room by telling her I had no idea skip day was that Friday, but that I'd given her kid an extension on the homework due that day because I respected senior traditions. She bought it. Then I pointed out that I'd emailed both her and Victor over the weekend, plenty of notice to form groups before Monday. She made him open his email right there on his phone. My message was sitting there, unopened, timestamp and everything. She thanked me, took him home. Class morale spiked. Dean gets destroyed. Dean's parents came in hot. Same energy. Their son did all the work. Bad grade isn't fair. Show us why. I pulled up a spreadsheet of every group project score from the year. No student names, just Dean's scores highlighted against class averages. His scores were consistently among the worst. Every single project. The pattern was impossible to deny. Dean's dad looked at the spreadsheet, looked at his son. Which part did you actually do? Dean started crying. Real tears, not the strategic kind, the kind where you realize the game's over and everybody in the room knows it. His parents kicked him out of the conference, asked me what they could do. I offered one-on-one tutoring, said he could still pass if he did the homework and got a B on the final. They agreed. We shook hands. Dean never showed up to tutoring. After 3 emails, his dad responded, "His mother and I have decided he needs to learn to be an adult. We're leaving him to his own devices. Thank you for your efforts." Dean spent the rest of the semester watching videos on his phone in every class. Every teacher emailed his parents and got the same response. The ripple effect was glorious. Grant's play. Grant was different. He took his terrible grade with a weird calm that I didn't trust. The other seniors were panicking. Grant was smiling. I knew he was plotting something. Special note about Grant. Since he'd turned 18, his parents had basically checked out. They traveled nonstop for work and were impossible to reach. Grant was functionally unsupervised. He'd been running his own life for months. No curfew, no oversight, no accountability. He was the one who'd built the system where kids did work for each other. He was the one who figured out which teachers could be pressured and which couldn't. This kid was smart. Just smart in all the wrong directions. Here's what he did. Victor's mom was emotional, reactive, and desperate. The perfect target. Grant started visiting her house, feeding her stories, telling her I'd been singling Victor out after school, making hostile comments, being verbally aggressive when other students weren't around. He told her, the school has cameras, you can even check that I was there, knowing that security footage would show him visiting my room, but without audio wouldn't capture what was actually said, which was nothing, because nothing happened. Victor's mom went straight to admin, demanded answers, accused me of emotionally abusing her son during tutoring sessions. What Grant didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I had a first-year teacher working in my room as part of the school's mentor program. Not a student teacher, a new hire paired with a veteran to learn the ropes. She needed contract hours, and I had her doing grades and observations in my room after school. She was young enough that the seniors assumed she was just another student and never questioned her presence. Couldn't even remember she was in there. My principal already had her written statements detailing every single interaction I'd had with Victor during tutoring. Dates, times, word for word what was said. All of it professional, all of it documented. When admin sat us all down, me, the principal, Victor, and his mom, she demanded Victor describe exactly what I'd said to him. He couldn't, fumbled, said he forgot the specifics, because there were no specifics, because nothing happened. Victor's mom realized she'd been played by a teenager, blamed it on Grant, got visibly upset with herself for falling for such a stupid setup. Admin sent a formal email to every teacher cautioning them about being alone with either student. Grant's entire plan, get me fired or at least investigated, then leverage the chaos into a passing grade during the confusion, was dead. And now every teacher in the building was hesitant to meet with him, which meant he could no longer charm his way into grade adjustments anywhere. The whole network he'd built over 4 years collapsed in 1 week. Victor's mom made one last play, and honestly, this one was almost impressive in its audacity. She emailed me, at like 10 p.m. on a Tuesday, saying that the parents of all 7 seniors had organized a meeting with my principal and the superintendent to have me fired. She said they were also considering legal action, but she'd be willing to speak on my behalf if I met with her first, privately, before the meeting. I read that email sitting in the staff lounge. My principal was literally at the next table grading papers. I showed him the screen. He squinted at it, looked at me, and said, "I have no meeting scheduled with anybody about anything." I responded to Victor's mom that I'd be happy to attend such a meeting, mentioned that I'd probably be eating lunch during it, and hoped nobody minded the smell of fish. She escalated. "No, seriously, they're threatening to sue you. This is real." I told her I appreciated the heads up and that I couldn't be held liable for eating fish during a meeting, but I'd try to be discreet about it. She stopped emailing after that. I think she finally realized, after an entire year of threats and meetings and accusations, that there was absolutely nothing she could do to a person who genuinely did not care about being threatened. I'd followed every policy, documented every interaction, answered every email within the required window, offered every opportunity, and I had the receipts for all of it. There was nothing to grab onto, nothing to sue over, nothing to escalate. Just a teacher who did his job and a parent who ran out of plays. Edit. People asking about the fish thing. She was trying to intimidate me. I responded with something so absurd that it made the threat look as ridiculous as it actually was. There's nothing scarier to a bully than someone who genuinely doesn't care. He responded to a legal threat by asking if anyone would mind the smell of fish. I'm sorry, but that is the most unbothered thing I've ever read. This man is operating on a level of calm that most people can't access without medication. Grant tried to get him fired using Victor's mom as a weapon, and it failed because there was a witness in the room the entire time that nobody noticed. That's not luck. That's a guy who's been playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers. Badly. Final update, the results, and they are satisfying. Final update, posted 2 months later. Final update, 7 seniors who spent 4 years gaming the system finally hit a wall they couldn't charm their way past. Here's what happened to all of them. Last update, the semester ended. Here's where everybody landed. The last weeks. The final stretch was chaos for these 7 and honestly kind of beautiful for everyone else. One by one, the walls closed in. Not just in my class, everywhere. Other teachers who'd spent years getting steamrolled by these parents saw how I handled the conferences and finally decided to hold the line themselves. No more lowered test percentages. No more phantom extra credit that only existed to cushion leached homework grades. No more caving in meetings just to make the parent go away. The entire ecosystem these kids had built over 4 years started collapsing at the same time, like pulling one card out of a house and watching the whole thing fold. A few of them had genuine breakdowns in my class. Not performance tears, real ones. The kind where you realize the grade is unfixable and the game is actually over. One kid walked out and didn't come back for 2 days. Another sat in his chair staring at his phone for an entire period without touching anything. Their friendships fractured hard. They started blaming each other for the skip day disaster, for the project grades, for who said what to whose parents. They'd been a crew for 4 years, and now they couldn't stand being in the same room. That part wasn't satisfying, honestly. It was just sad. These were kids who never learned how to do things the right way because every adult in their life made sure they didn't have to. My final exam was online. Multiple choice. Here's the key part. Questions and answers were randomized for every single student. Different order, different arrangement, which meant sitting next to your buddy was completely useless. You couldn't copy because your screen didn't match theirs. I'd known for months they'd try to cheat on the final. They always clustered together during exams, same section of the room, same angle where they could see each other's screens. The randomization killed that play before it started. Victor's mom emailed me accusing me of making Victor's version of the test harder than everyone else's. I showed her that every student received the identical question pool in a randomized order. Same questions, same difficulty, just shuffled. She had nothing left to argue. Grant passed the exam. He'd actually hired private tutors with his parents' money to cram during the last 2 weeks. But his overall grade only climbed to a D-. He needed much higher than that. The tutors couldn't undo 4 years of nothing in 14 days. When the last second, what can I do to raise my grade emails came flooding in, I had one answer for all of them. I pointed to the extra credit assignments I'd seeded throughout the entire semester. Every single one time-stamped. Every single one documented in the online system. Not a single one of these 7 had even opened the files. Not opened and failed, never opened at all. Hard to argue you weren't given opportunities when the system proves you ignored every single one. The results. Here's what happened to each of the 7. I kept tabs through other teachers and the occasional run-in at school functions. Small town. Word travels. The first casualty didn't graduate. Flat out didn't have the credits. Had to transfer to another school and finish the following semester. His parents had flown the entire extended family in for the ceremony. New suit, dinner reservations at the nicest restaurant in town, hotel rooms booked, and their kid sat in the parking lot in his regular clothes while 200 of his classmates walked across that stage. His parents were so embarrassed they didn't speak to him for a month. I heard that from his former group mate who still talked to him occasionally. 2 of the seniors lost their college scholarships. Their final GPAs dipped below the minimum threshold, and the schools pulled the offers without hesitation. These were conditional acceptances. Maintain a certain GPA and you're in, drop below it and you're out. They dropped below it. Their backup plan was to attend the same state school together and be roommates, which they did, along with Victor and 2 of the others. 5 of them in one dorm hall. Still running the same playbook, still expecting somebody else to do the work, just in a building with higher tuition. Dean's parents cut off his college funding entirely after the tutoring no-shows and the semester of watching YouTube in class. They told him to get a job. He lived at home for about a year doing absolutely nothing, which tracked because that's what he'd been doing for 4 years, just without the pretense of being a student. Last I heard, he works at a vape shop. His parents apparently told a mutual acquaintance they don't know where they went wrong. I have some theories, but nobody asked me. Victor went to college on his mom's money, used it to pay other students to do his assignments. Same playbook, bigger stakes. When that stopped working, he started faking his transcripts to keep the funding coming. Changed grades and screenshots, made up courses. The school caught on eventually and expelled him. His mom, and this part is incredible, tells people he decided to pursue entrepreneurship instead of traditional education. Last I heard, he bought a drone to film weddings. Also last I heard, he was actually distributing for a dealer on the side and had moved up to heavier product. His mom genuinely believes he's building a wedding videography business. I don't have the heart to tell anyone who might tell her. That's not my problem anymore. Grant. Grant is the one that stays with me. His college, the one he'd locked down with supposedly a low GPA requirement, looked at his final transcript and pulled the acceptance. Whatever number he needed, he missed it. Probably by a lot, given how the semester went. He spent the summer in Europe on his parents' credit card, apparently planning to just show up at school in the fall like nothing happened. When his parents found out there was no school to go to, they told him not to come home. They were selling the house, downsizing to a condo since they traveled full-time anyway. No spare room, no safety net. Last I heard, Grant was telling people he joined the military but got medically discharged. Except the story changed depending on who heard it. 3 different people gave me 3 different conditions he was supposedly discharged for. None of them were real. None of them even sounded real. The kid spent 4 years perfecting the art of the lie, and this was the best he could come up with on his own? Without a system to game and people to manipulate, he just had nothing. But here's the one that makes the whole year worth it. The one that made every 48-hour email delay and every parent meeting and every accusation worth sitting through. One of the 7, I won't say which one out of respect for his privacy, went to college with his friends and almost immediately realized he was heading down the exact same path. Something clicked. He cut ties with the group, started actually doing the work. I got an email from him about a year after graduation. Thanked me for running my class the way I did. Said the structure and accountability were the first time anyone actually held him to a standard he couldn't talk his way out of. Said it prepared him for college in a way nothing else did. He graduated with honors, got a job in a solid field. That one email made the entire year worth every parent meeting, every 48-hour email delay, every accusation, every threat of lawyers that never materialized. I didn't set out to destroy anybody. I know how this reads, like some mastermind teacher who orchestrated a takedown. It wasn't that. I moved a project because another teacher dropped a monster assignment the same week, and I knew it would burn out my students before finals. The skip day timing was a bonus. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't smiling when I checked attendance that Friday and saw 7 empty seats. The truth is, I just followed my own policies, documented everything, let 7 kids who'd spent 4 years avoiding consequences finally run into them head first without a parent or a charm offensive to cushion the impact. Edit. Yes, the Google Docs timestamp is still my favorite weapon. If you're a teacher reading this, use it. It's impossible for a parent to argue with their kid's own digital footprint. Edit 2. Somebody asked if Victor's mom ever apologized for the abuse accusation. She did not. She did send me a fruit basket at the end of the year with a card that said, "Thank you for your patience," which is either genuine growth or the most passive-aggressive fruit basket in history. I ate the pineapple. It was good. He moved one project, followed his own rules, documented everything, and 7 kids who'd spent 4 years gaming the system finally ran out of road. The parents couldn't fight it because every email was answered, every rubric was distributed, every extra credit opportunity was time-stamped and ignored. There was nothing to argue. The data told the whole story. 1 kid didn't graduate, 2 lost scholarships, 1's pretending he joined the military. One's selling for a dealer while his mom thinks he's filming weddings. And one of them figured it out, changed course, and graduated with honors. That's the one that matters. So if you enjoyed today's story, go ahead and hit the like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. All the links are in the description below. Thank you guys for watching. It really does mean a lot. And having said all that, I will see you in the next one. Peace.